Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Pittsburgh Pirates. We are at the beginning of the 2042 offseason. Was another successful year for the Pirates on the field, made the playoffs for the third time in 5 years as general manager of the team. And then when we got to the playoffs, we knocked off the NL West, winning Colorado Rockies 2-0 in the wild card series. Then we swept away in the NLDS, the NL East winning Washington Nationals. But then we ran into a juggernaut that was the New York Mets, who beat us 4-1 in the National League Championship Series on their way to a World Series championship. You can see that the Mets had the best ERA, best defensive efficiency in all of baseball, and it was pitcher's duel after pitcher's duel for most of that National League Championship Series, and in all games but one, their pitchers were just a little bit better than ours. So that said, given where this team was when we took them over, the fact that in our 5 years we've made 3 playoff appearances and have the 5 best records that the Pirates have in their last decade is a positive. The negative is, after all of that success on the field, making the playoffs, making it all the way to the NLCS, having a year where we made money once again for cheapskate owner Robert Nutting. He still cut our budget for next year by $2 million. So we are way over budget right now. In the just completed 2042 season, we had a little less than $100 million of payroll. We're at $110 million right now, so we're going to have to get rid of some arbitration eligible players. Bobby Gonzalez has opted out of his contract, so we don't have him signed anymore. And most importantly, Ricky Gotti, who was our highest paid player this year, excellent 30-year-old starting pitcher, is headed to free agency, looking for about $24 million a year. So there is little to no chance that we'll be able to keep him. And when you look at some of these arbitration numbers that we're dealing with, $10 million for Luis Linares, close to $12 million for John Herrera, close to $5 million for Willie Arenales and Elijah Helton, $3.5 million for Greg Gaylord, almost $3 million for Tony Jones, a little over $2 million for Giovanni Venturini, and $7.3 million for Jaquan Hinton, $6.9 million for closer Manny Collazo. We're going to have to move on from some of those players this offseason. We've probably got to cut at least $10 million out of this payroll. And that's if we're willing to invest less in scouting and development, which we've managed to keep $50 million between those two for each of the past several seasons at this point. Honestly, we need to cut more than $10 million out of player payroll, with the fact that our budget is even less next year, because we also potentially have money that we're going to need to spend on international amateur free agents as well as the draft. So it's definitely frustrating that I feel like we've done a lot of good things on the field in the 5 years that we've been running this team. We just can't get fan interest kicked up to a level where we can generate lots of revenue in the stadium. Going to have to figure out whether we want to drop ticket prices a little bit. We'll see if hopefully we do re-sign some of our arbitration eligible players. Maybe we'll get a little bump in fan interest. Would be nice to certainly get back closer to 12,000 season tickets than the 9,000 we sold last year. And you can see if we pull our scouting and development budgets down to a minimal amount of $4 million and $6 million, that would give us $3 million for free agents. So absolutely no way that we can possibly bring back Mr. Gotti, unfortunately. So before we forget, we're going to make sure that we submit the qualifying offer to him, so hopefully we'll at least get draft pick compensation. And we're going to have to figure out which one of these arbitration eligible players we want to make offers to, and which ones we are going to have to try to trade away and get some value for, since we just can't possibly afford to keep all of them. And an easy decision to move on from is Jorge Melendez, or it should be an easy decision. A guy who's a 4A pitcher, if that. Unfortunately, he's very popular and a fan favorite, but I don't want to be spending over $1 million or around $1 million on a guy that should not be on our major league roster. So I'm going to look to see if we can, what if anything we can possibly get for Mr. Melendez in a trade. That's not going to free up much money, but every little bit that we can do helps, and if we get a useful player back for him, we'll take it. Doesn't look like we're going to get too much useful. Sergio Barron, bad personality, in line to make $2.2 million next year, so not that exciting there. And Jose Carrion, reliever, making $4 million, going to be a free agent, not as popular. No real point in trading for him. So trying to think if we don't make an offer to Melendez, or if we release Melendez, will either of those have any impact on whether we have a hit to fan interest for letting go of this guy? We're not going to offer him anything. There's no point in doing that. Greg Gaylord, we definitely do want back. Numbers starting to get high. Arbitration estimate $3.4 million, so can probably get him for a little less than that. He always wants to be guaranteed that spot in the starting rotation, though, and I hate lying to him, so he's willing to think about $3.25 million. So hopefully we can get him locked up. I'm going to go through the rest of these guys, give it some thought, and won't bore you with me making offers one by one to each of them, but we'll let you know what I'm thinking, and then we'll try to deal away some of the guys that we aren't gonna bring back. And I'll lie to you, because there's one guy that I know we aren't going to be able to bring back. That's third baseman Luis Linares, whose number is going to be close to $10 million next year. He's fragile. He's been a very productive player since we picked him up in the trade from Kansas City two and a half years ago. Excellent defensive player. Not much of a hitter, although he has been a solid hitter for us each of the last 2 years. I just don't think that... I mean, he's 3 wins above replacement over every 162 games he plays, but he's fragile, and he's going to be making $10 million, and he's just not a difference maker as a third baseman. As a shortstop, he was excellent, but we now have Tony Cota at shortstop making the major league minimum, who's even better defensively. Tony Cota is not as good a hitter, but we've got him at short. And then potentially coming up to play third from our minor league system is Ethan Fox, one of the 2 players that we picked up in the big trade when we traded away one of the top prospects in baseball, Angel Aguilar, before the season started. Again, he's not a brilliant player. He's still got some work to do. Would prefer if he didn't have to be on the roster on opening day and could get a little more seasoning in AAA. But I think he's a decent player for a team like the Pirates to have at third base. Not someone who's going to hurt us, going to play solid defense and hit enough that he won't be an embarrassment out there. So because of that, the first arbitration-eligible player that we want to see what we can get for is Luis Linares. There should be some demand for him. He's a pretty versatile player, pretty good offensive player. I just don't think we can afford to retain him. You can see there's a lot of interesting offers out there that I'll have to take a look at. And there's actually a few interesting players out there for Linares. Had to go to look just for prospects. The regulars was offered a lot of interesting players, but no one that interesting. I think I am leaning towards Nelson Ibarra, catcher with the Rangers. A very average-ish, I mean, honestly, above average or below average offensive profile. But he's durable. He's an excellent defender. Was up this year, hit just 222, 9 home runs. You can see he was barely above replacement level. I'm intrigued by his glove and the fact that he's got 2 option years left, and the fact that 2 of the 3 catchers who were in the majors for us this year are arbitration eligible and both going to be hard to bring back. And a 3rd catcher that we had on the roster this year is a free agent. So we really don't have a major league catcher right now unless we decide to bring back Giovanni Venturini. And honestly, I look at Venturini's profile and his defense and the fact that he's going to be looking for $2.2 million. And to me, bringing on Ibarra is very similar offense with better defense, younger player, still got 2 option years. It seems like for a player of Linares quality, we probably should be able to get more than that. One other player who I am interested in that I might like to pick up in another trade that we were offered for him from Philadelphia is reliever Ricky Rios. You can see he's got decent stuff, excellent movement, okay control, also durable, and another guy that's got 2 option years left, only 25 years old. We're going to have some holes in the bullpen to fill. He's a ground ball pitcher. We should once again have a very good infield defense. So Rios is another guy that I may target down the line when we look to get rid of some other players. But right now, I think I'm going to focus on bringing in the catcher, Ibarra, seeing if we can get more than just him for Linares. And then that'll allow us to probably trade away Venturini rather than putting him through arbitration, which will save us a little more money. So we're going to see if we can get more than just Ibarra for Linares, but that'll definitely clear up some money off of our books for next season by not having to make a arbitration offer close to $10 million to Luis. And we were able to get a little more out of the Rangers for Linares. Also get closer Sergio Robinson, 24 years old, never pitched above Double-A ball, but a good personality. Looks like someone who we could use is a back of the bullpen type of arm in a couple of years. Still has 3 option years left. Doesn't have a major league contract right now. So good personality and a guy who could be the 7th or 8th arm out of our bullpen in a few seasons. So definitely some value there. Also got them to throw in some cash, which we always needed, this team. So Linares had a nice 2.5-year run with us, probably longer than I thought we'd be able to keep him when we traded for him from Kansas City. But I think we've got potential replacements within the organization for him at third base at this point. We've got a better defensive shortstop now, so that'll save us some money. So we're going to go ahead and complete the trade. Of course, the fans not happy that we let him go. This fan interest is crazy. I mean, that one you can understand a little bit because he's been with us for 2.5 years, but we just brought this team to the NLCS and the owner cut the budget. I mean, I guess, you're not just mad at me as the GM and you're not just mad at me at the players, you're mad at the owner as well, which I get. So that one, I guess, makes a little sense to me. And with Ibarra on the team now, that lets us see what we can possibly get for Mr. Giovanni Venturini. Don't want to be spending over $2 million a year on him. If we've got Ibarra, who is a better defensive player and very similar offensively for the major league minimum. And you can see there's little or no demand for Mr. Venturini. We can pick up Jordan Inoue, horrible personality. Going to be making $15 million next year. Very good hitter, don't get me wrong, but not someone that we can afford. I guess we'll look and see if there's some regulars too, but I'm guessing Mr. Venturini, not much of a market out there for him. Couple other options. I'm guessing none of them are all that attractive. I'm guessing we're going to be seeing a lot of these players actually with the money that they're making every time we, not every time, but a lot of the times when we put an offer out there on people that aren't as popular. You tend to get the same names back. There's really just nothing here. So we're going to make sure that we don't make an offer to Mr. Venturini. Perhaps sometime over the next couple of weeks, as we're kind of trying to get this roster figured out. Someone like Melendez or someone like Venturini we might be able to throw into a deal. I tend to think that players like that have almost no value, but we'll give it a shot. And we've decided to make offers to utility infielder Jaden Dixon and closer Manny Collazo. Collazo at $6.7 million is starting to get expensive, but he's a pretty talented player. Traded for from Baltimore last year. At some point he may price himself out of Pittsburgh, but hopefully it won't be for the upcoming season. The two huge ticket items that we need to decide something on are first baseman Jaquan Hinton. He is a player who has been incredibly productive over the course of his major league career, honestly, until this past season when Washington traded him to us. But 48, 30, and 34 homers the 3 seasons prior to this year. Well above average offensive player. If we could get that player, and we knew that's the player we were going to be getting, around $7 million could work for us. You know, when I look at these ratings, I just don't know if he's still that player anymore. You know, according to our scouting report, his power's dipped a bit. His potential contact has dipped. He kind of is what he is at this point. Actually, that was his power potential too, so it actually hasn't dipped. So he kind of looks like the same player that we've thought that he was when he was putting up some big years. Actually, in some ways, he looks like a better player today than when he was putting up some of those big years. So that's a tough one. And then catcher John Herrera. We traded for him figuring it was going to be a 1-year rental. That arbitration eligibility number, or the arbitration number, close to $12 million is just a scary figure for us, which means we're potentially going to lose another extremely popular player and take another giant hit to our fan interest. But I just don't see how we can keep him around for $12 million. He's an above-average offensive catcher, I think, even though he didn't play that way with us this year. He's a little above average defensively. He's popular to have around, but I don't think we can pay the guy $12 million. So let's see what the market is like for him. I'll have to move ahead to tomorrow. I guess we've already done enough shopping here. Just prospects. What do you give me for Johnny Herrera? Excellent catcher. A lot of old guys making some money, and then we'll take a look at the list of prospects that we might be able to get for Herrera. Well, we've got a trade together that includes John Herrera, but the offers for him with the money he was going to be making were not what I would have expected. We also have to include Jaquan Hinton, the other guy who's going to be making a lot of money. He was borderline to keep at that number, but he was just so disappointing over this past year, and he got worse when he was with us, that I don't know about spending close to $7 million on him. And then we have to throw in a third base non-prospect, Wilson Rosales, which is fine. But we'll get the reliever Ricky Rios, who we had seen in the previous trade for Linares, was a player that we wanted to potentially target. He's durable, good stuff, excellent movement, okay control. Looks like he could be a pretty useful pitcher out of the bullpen for us. Had a 1.61 ERA last year in AAA. You can see that through the minor leagues the last few years, the highest ERA he's put up was 2.28. Did not allow a run in an inning and two-thirds at the major league level. Obviously, a small sample size, but I think he can be a pretty good pitcher. And we'll get a tiny bit of cash back, and we'll clear a lot of that salary that was causing us potential issues for next year. So it's going to leave us a lot that we need to rebuild. We're letting go of Linares, Herrera, and Hinton, who were the three most expensive arbitration eligible players on our team. The fans aren't going to like this, but I can't run this team for the fans anymore. I need to run it for Mr. Nutting. So we'll go ahead and complete that trade. Fans not happy about the loss of Hinton. Fans shocked about the loss of Herrera. They like Rios a little bit, but let's see how bad this is. Fan interest is down to a 54 for trading away a bunch of guys who were rentals, but it is what it is. We now actually have money to spend. We actually have money for our scouting and development budgets, and we can hopefully figure out how to replace some of these big holes on our roster that we've just created. And as you remember, Bobby Gonzalez did opt out of his $4 million contract for this upcoming season. He's willing to talk extension at around $4.7 million a year. He is a respectable major league starter. Over the course of his career, he's been an above-average player. He's been an above-average pitcher in his time in Pittsburgh, in his time in Miami, in his time in Boston. He's an Iron Man physically. He just kind of goes out and gets the job done. I don't know that I want to give him $4.7 million a year for 5 years like he's looking for. But if we can find something a little less with a team option at the end rather than a player option, perhaps we can bring him back to hopefully be a fourth or fifth starter for us for the next few years. So he's looking for 4.7 plus million over 5 years with a player option at the end. We're offering him 4.4 million over 5 years with a team option at the end. I think it's a deal he'll consider. Yep. He's just a solid major league starter. If we can get him for a little over $4 million a year with Santana and Longoria at the front of our bullpen, and the potential that relatively soon next season we'll have Montoya up with them, that potentially gives us 3 really good pitchers at the top of our rotation. If we end up with Gonzalez and potentially Rosales in our 4 and 5 spots, at least we've got respectable major league starters there. And while I'm thinking about it, I am going to cut ticket prices. Hopefully we'll get some more fan interest, so we'll be able to bump them back up before, I think it's the winter meetings when we have to set it by, but I don't want to forget to potentially cut them. It's sad that a team like the Pirates with 3 playoff appearances in 4 seasons and went to the NLCS last year, and I have to be careful about ticket prices because nobody still wants to come watch us. Just putting in filler amounts for scouting and development, clearly hope that I'll be able to get these better down the line. We kind of do have enough money right now where if we wanted to make an offer for Gotti, we could. I think we've got so many holes on this team right now that we can't really afford to do that. But it does give us the opportunities to bring back Arenales and Helton into our bullpen, who are both excellent. They're starting to make big money, which isn't optimal. Arenales especially just doesn't look that special, but he's been a good major league pitcher. The last 3 years, his highest ERA is a 3. But it is a lot of money for a middle reliever. Helton at least brings a little bit more to the table. I mean, he's been a very good pitcher over the course of his career. Helton, I definitely want to bring back. It's a lot of money for a reliever, $5.5 million-ish. Ooh, arbitration estimate is 4.8 though. Probably going to get angry if we offer him close to that amount, but can we get him for 4.6? Especially if we're not going to lie and tell him that he's going to be the closer. He's willing to think about it. So that's positive. Tony Jones is another tough one. He's popular, which encourages me to bring him back. He is good in the clubhouse. Gives up a lot of home runs, though. He can start for us in a pinch, though, which we could need next year. I don't know if I want to bring him back at 2.8, but obviously I'm going to need to be pretty close to that number. $2.65, but we're not guaranteeing you a closer role. He really wants to be a closer. Well, you could be talking yourself out of our organization, Mr. Jones. Bun. All right, he's willing to think about $2.7 million. Arenales, not all that popular. It might be time for us to move on from him. He's a solid pitcher. I don't know that I want to be spending about $4.7 million a year on him, though. I like his durability. Wonder what the trade market is like for him. Probably not going to get a ton of prospects for a player like him, but you never know. Or we'll get no prospects offered for him. Kind of tells us all. Kind of tells me all I need to know. We'll see what kind of garbage we get offered for him. Yeah, it's kind of the... I think that's kind of a sign that I may have, been too close to the situation here, but I don't think we want to be paying Arenales the kind of money that he's looking for. He's been with us, I think, since the start of this playthrough, right? Yeah. It was a Rule 5 draft pick that we took from our old team in Kansas City, and he's been up with us for the last 5 years. He's been a respectable relief pitcher, more than respectable, quite honestly, but I don't think he's a $4.5 million a year guy. If he was very popular, I might have had to bring him back, but I think we're going to go down to a 0 offer on him also. So now we're just kind of waiting to hear about the offers we have out to Gaylord, Helton, Jones, Collazo, and Dixon, as well as the offer we have out to Bobby Gonzalez. And while we're potentially totally revamping this roster, or preparing to totally revamp this roster in the offseason, going to see if there's any demand for Ignacio Carbajal as a backup outfielder making $3.2 million next year. Guy who only got 192 at-bats over the last couple seasons since we have Herrera on board now. I like his glove, but it's a luxury for us to be paying a backup outfielder the kind of money that we're paying him. And we also do have a lot of young talent coming up through the system in the outfield position. And Not surprisingly, the same two guys are all we can get for Mr. Carbajal, so doesn't have a ton of value. And we're actually going to take one of the guys that everyone's just dumping, Sergio Barron. He's arbitration eligible next year, so we can just offer him nothing and move on from him. And that'll get us out from under Carvajal's contract. We also get back two guys with decent personalities, not really prospects. David Elenis, low on greed, and Jonam Nasberg, high loyalty, high work ethic catcher who could definitely play in our system for the next few years. So we'll view this as really just addition by subtraction. Doesn't seem like Carbajal had any value. We get $3.2 million off the books, get a couple guys for our minor leagues, and we can just make no offer to Sergio Barron, and he'll be gone next year. Of course, the fans aren't happy that we got rid of Carbajal, but we're kind of done for the time being playing that fan interest game. We got to just try to build a team that can be successful, and hopefully, if we build it, they will come. And we're starting to get some of our arbitration-eligible players signed. Jaden Dixon signed. Closer Manny Collazo signed. We've also signed a bunch of our minor league free agents. Signing of Collazo gave us a little bump in fan interest, but nothing particularly exciting, unfortunately. So we're still waiting to hear on Gaylord, Helton, and Jones. Plan on moving on from Venturini, Barron, Arenales, and Melendez. We'll check in again just to see if we can get anything in trade for any of them. And obviously also made that offer to Bobby Gonzalez. Very interested in hearing what he comes back with to us as well. And we did get Bobby Gonzalez signed, so that's positive. The fans a little bit happy with that. Tony Jones signed. Elijah Helton, which the fans are happy about. Greg Gaylord, which the fans are happy about. Slightly happy with each of those. So 3 signings. I'm guessing that means that our fan interest is going to be at 58. Yep, I know how this works. Going to be an interesting offseason. There's just no market for any of those guys. I checked on Arenales a little bit and just can't get anything for him. I guess we can check in one last time with Ricky Gotti. $24.3 million. It's just I'd love to have him back, but it's just not a number that we can make work. Sorry, Gotti. We will, I don't know if I'll say we'll happily accept the draft pick compensation, but we will accept the draft pick compensation. And although it seems like we've got tons of money to spend, I have to remember that we haven't done much of anything with our scouting and development budgets. Again, I hope we can get them higher than these amounts, but just want to make sure that we don't have them at total garbage levels if we forget about it. But you can see we've got $10 million for free agents right now, and we're $14 million below where we were last season. So even in a best case scenario now, where we somehow don't spend any money on any free agents, we're still not going to be able to have the same scouting and development budgets that we had last year, even with all the players that we've let go. The math is definitely challenging with a team like Pittsburgh. And it's kind of depressing to think about, but one lever that we can potentially press next season is to cut our international amateur free agent budget down to 0. That would open up another $5 million for us. And then we are getting to the point where Henry Gonzalez, Jose Montoya, going to be on the team at some point next year. Alex Roacho, Sal Valadez close. Ethan Fox, very close. We may keep those guys down at the beginning of the year because playing with this Pittsburgh team, we will do the service time manipulation if need be to give ourselves slightly more of a fighting chance, but maybe we're not as bad as I think we are. I mean, we've bled a bunch of talent with the guys we had to trade away who were arbitration eligible. And that's not even talking about losing the likes of Ricky Gotti, Arturo Ailman, Zion Rose. Granted, with the case of Ailman and Rose, those were guys who were on our team for 2.5 months and a little more than 2.5 months, I think. So it doesn't mean that we're not going to take a fan interest hit when they go, but Ricky Gotti is really the guy who's been with us for a long time that's going to hurt to lose. Up here, similarly, Willie Arenales is the only guy who's really been a big-time part of our team over an extended period of time. But maybe we kind of need to do this reset. We have been investing heavily in scouting and player development for the last couple years, and it's probably time to start getting some of those players onto the Major League roster and seeing if they can make a difference for us. And we're on to the Silver Slugger Awards. Apparently we didn't win any Gold Gloves, and we didn't win Reliever of the Year. Silver Slugger, I'm guessing it's going to be a familiar name. Yes. Isaiah Hill, 4 seasons, 4 All-Star Awards, 4 Silver Sluggers. No shock there after another great season for Mr. Hill. Take a quick look at the previous awards. Doesn't really matter to look at the Gold Glovers because I don't know enough about the other players in the National League to really know if they are better than our players or not. But I am a little surprised with the excellent infield defense that we have that don't have any Gold Glovers this year. Reliever of the Year, Manny Collazo finished 3rd in the voting. No first place votes, but had that nice 5-4 season, 43 saves. 100 strikeouts and 75 1/3 innings. So we do have him back at a pretty big number for next season. So hopefully the lefty closer will have another big year for us. And I'd say this is a little bit of a surprise, given that he didn't even make our postseason roster. Clearly a little bit of a down year for rookies in the National League. Sean Barley, Rookie of the Year, hit 286 in 332 at-bats. As I talked about in our previous episode, did not make the postseason roster because we had brought on so many kind of first base / DH players, primarily in trades with the Washington Nationals. But with the departure of both of those players this coming offseason, we already traded away Hinton, who was an arbitration-eligible player, and we will soon be losing Arturo Ailman, who's going to make a lot of money in free agency. It's very conceivable that Barley will be our starting first baseman next year. So 3 Rookies of the Year in 5 years for these Pirates. Sean Barley this year, Perkins last year, and then, of course, Isaiah Hill 4 seasons ago. Barley, clearly the least impressive of the 3, but still a unanimous Rookie of the Year winner. They can never take that away from him. And we didn't win any of the big awards. Cy Young Award in the American League unanimously goes to Rogelio Loera of the Astros, 21-7, 2.43 ERA, 377 strikeouts, and 225 2/3 innings. This guy at the age of 30 is just having an insane career. Already has 5 Cy Young Awards, and you look at the strikeout numbers, and they are absolutely ridiculous. Turned 30 on August 21st. And he already has almost 3,000 career strikeouts. Just an absolutely insane pitcher with that off-the-charts stuff. And 3 brilliant pitches. Looking at some of the other awards, hard to imagine we'll see performances that are quite as impressive as what Loera's done over the first few years of his career. Machuca, unanimous Cy Young Award winner for the former short-time Pirate who went to the division-leading and division-winning St. Louis Cardinals, 19-6 with a 2.57 ERA. Tristan Champion, who of course did very well against us in the playoffs and ended up being on the World Championship. Mets finished second. Tony Santana, our ace, is back with us next year, and it looks like he finished seventh in the voting. David Mendoza of the Texas Rangers, 45 homers, 113 ribbies, 296 batting average. Looks like he's a decent defensive second baseman, the MVP. And in the National League, Jose Sanchez of the Colorado Rockies, unanimous MVP, monster season, 9.3 WAR, 1.058 OPS, 658 slugging, 146 ribbies, and 58 home runs. All were league-leading numbers from Mr. Sanchez, brilliant center fielder for Colorado. Isaiah Hill finished fourth in the voting for us. And looks like he, not surprisingly, was the only Pirate who received votes for the award. And now that we're through awards season, we're just a week away from arbitration hearings. Doesn't seem like we're going to get any value out of these players, but we'll give it one last try with the trade market this week. We'll check in with Ricky Gotti once more. I'm sure he's still looking for $24.3 million. Just no way that we can bring him back, so we'll fortunately get the draft pick compensation for him when he signs a big deal somewhere else. Hopefully it won't be in the National League. I'm going to miss Arenales. He's been with the team since we picked him in the Rule 5 draft. I'd say that the performance we got for 5 years out of him as a Rule 5 player, 3.41 ERA, 339 strikeouts over 319 and 2/3 innings is pretty solid performance. But he's not a $4.5 to $5 million player, and I think that the lack of the trade market for him shows that well. Was an all-star back for us in 2040. We'll always have the memories, Willie. And in very unsurprising news, Ricky Gotti declined our qualifying offer. He's become a free agent. So we will hopefully get some draft pick compensation when he signs somewhere else. Normally there's not too much interesting in the international amateur, or the international free agents, not the amateur free agents. Couple at least we're thinking about. Frank Perez looks like a decent left-handed reliever coming out of Cuba. Issue is he's looking for about $4 million a year. Probably not worth that to a team like Pittsburgh. Looks like Nelson Zamora out of Cuba has already signed with the Minnesota Twins. Wonder what he's making. Minor league contract, interesting. That was one where there was just no opportunity to sign him. And then Ai-Tsing Chu, second baseman out of Taiwan. Not a big-time prospect, but if he's willing to sign a minor league contract, would certainly take a flyer on a player like him. I don't know that he'll go for a minor league contract. He may end up going for wanting something that a minor league contract with a major league guarantee, which we could, potentially give him, because he may not make our major league roster, and then he could walk away, obviously. But mildly interesting with him. Taking a look at the top free agents, at least according to the list from OOTP. Right fielder Sean Jones, Alex Rojas, big-time pitcher. Won't go through all these guys. The only two that are, Arturo Ailman is a former short-time Pirate. Ricky Gotti is a former long-time Pirate. And then Dave Urquiza was with us a few years ago also. So those are kind of the highlights of the list. So taking a look at some of the top free agents as free agency begins. We're clearly not going to be playing at the top end of the market. Probably not even going to be playing at the low end of the market, although now that we're past all of the contract shenanigans, it looks like we've got about $21 million. So that should allow us to hopefully get scouting and development closer to where they need to be. Pay or play roll, is it really down to 69, 70 million? Yeah, it's in that range with the people who are on the major league roster. We've really pared back a lot of big contracts. You can see we've got the long-term deals for Santana and Hill at the top of the list, and then it's Collazo's arbitration number, Helton's arbitration number, Alex Perkins, Bobby Gonzalez, Gaylord, and Jones with their arbitration numbers, and then Gaona, Heel, Rosales, and Herrera with the extensions that they signed with us. So not a lot of big money on the books anymore, so we do have some flexibility. Always could look to add a pitcher. Feel like we could use a third baseman and could probably use some help in the outfield. The positive things about the three things I just said is that we've obviously got outfield help coming in Henry Gonzalez. We may have third base help coming in Ethan Fox. And we likely have starting pitching help coming in Jose Montoya. So I don't think we have to push on anything too hard this postseason or this off season. Clearly, we want to add some talent to the team after the big wave of talent that left us that we just experienced. But I don't think we have to chase anything. Don't see anyone here who really jumps out as someone we have to try to sign, especially with some of the big numbers that are involved. Ishmael Aguiar is a first baseman, third baseman. If he was popular, I'd go after him. El Alvarez, a second baseman, not looking for much. He's wrecked physically. Just not that exciting. Taking a look at the top pitchers available, I know we're going to see Ricky Gotti somewhere near the top of that list. Actually, there's so many relievers that you don't see Gotti, but when we go to starting pitchers who are, for the most part, going to be the ones making the big money, Gotti is certainly high on the list, and it looks like he's asking for more money than anybody out there at this point. Interesting. Taking a look at some of those relievers, there might be something for us to do there. It looks like some of these players are not looking for insane amounts of money. Jose Baca is extremely popular. You're going to find me doing it again. He's wrecked physically. But we could potentially look to bring him on for a one-year contract. I know I said that I would not play this game of trying to pump up our fan interest, but it's going to be hard for me to stay away from that temptation when we dig into free agency. And we will dig into free agency in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.